and her experiences, how her life changed as a result of World War II. So Rita, thank you very much for inviting us to come and talk with me today. I'd like to start out by talking about your family. Tell me about your parents and your grandparents, where they were from, what brought them here, how they met.
Okay. My grandparents were from Russia.
And their names?
Celia Small and Morris Small.
What part of Russia?
But actually that was not their name when they came over. Their name was Smilowitz or Smolowitz, whichever way whoever took the name down spelled it.
Okay. And what part of Russia were they from?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's all right. And what brought them to this area? Did they come to New Haven initially?
I think they did. I think they came to New Haven initially.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are your memories of them?
Well, my grandfather, very, very little. My grandmother was a very special person, I feel. They had to go through an awful lot in their day. And I understand that they had a home at one time, but things were bad. They lost the home. And they all moved out to a farm. I keep referring back to Laura because she's my first cousin, and we shared some of the same things that were going on. My father was born here, but my mother wasn't. Of course, you didn't ask me that question yet.
Now tell me,
Yeah.
me, your father was born in New Haven?
In New Haven, yep.
Okay. And where was your mother born?
My brother was born in Russia also.
Okay. Not sure where.
I didn't realize it.
And how did your parents meet? When did your mother come to New Haven?
Oh, golly. They must have been very young. I really don't know how they met.
Okay. Well, the important thing is they met.
Yes.
And where did they live in New Haven?
My memories were on Truman Street, basically. Okay. And then my father was in business with somebody in the family, partners at the hotel where I lived a good part of my life. I moved there when I was about 5 years old.
Okay, and tell me the name of the hotel and how you got there.
The name of the hotel was the National Hotel. It was a very small hotel. And at the time...
Located?
On Crown Street in New Haven. At that time, people of color, as we call them now, were not allowed to go into the better hotels. And very often, they were very welcome at our hotel.
I'm great. How are you?
Some of the name bands, Louis Armstrong was there, and a few others that my father always told us about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what was it like living in a hotel?
Horrible. When I was about, I think, 13, my mother decided it really wasn't a good place to bring up a young girl. And so I went off to live with an aunt who lived in New Haven. And I would see my mom and dad every day because I would go to Hill House High School, and it was not too far from the downtown area, so I would make sure that I would be there every day.
So what was horrible about living in the hotel? What were some of the things that you remember?
Well, it was difficult to have friends. When you were real little, when I was 7, 8, 9, I would make friends at the different schools that I would go to, but it was difficult. Until I later got to high school. And
so did your family have an apartment, or was it,
My brother lived on the 4th floor. I lived on the 1st floor. We had our own private kitchen at the end of the hall, and that was it. So there was no living room. Oh yes, we did. We had another room that was the living room. I remember, yeah.
And what floor were your parents on?
On the 1st floor.
They were on the 1st floor.
Yeah.
So it wasn't exactly the traditional home.
No, it wasn't. But there was a boarding house across the street, and there was a family who had kids who went to school with me for a few years.
Mhm.
We played on the roof.
Okay, okay. So you couldn't have friends come over because there was no place to play, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of your memories about the elementary schools? What were the elementary schools that you went to in New Haven? What are some of your memories about them?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Truman Street School was just kindergarten. Orange Street School was kindergarten as well. Webster Street School, I met one of my first real girlfriends. I think we were in 5th grade together. We've been friends ever since.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you moved in with your aunt, where did she live?
On Button Street and the Hill section.
Okay.
She was a widow. And my mother thought it would be helping her out a little bit if I went to live with her.
So
She would pay room and board for me.
what was that like for you?
Well, I made friends then because it was a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if you talk to any of the old New Haveners, originally they came from the Hill section.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have an older brother.
And he stayed in the hotel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went to Troop Junior High School from
Mhm.
from Button Street?
No, from the hotel.
Okay. All right. So it was when you were in high school that you moved to Button Street?
Yes.
Okay, so you were in high school then. Okay. Do you have any memories of special teachers or things that you did in high school, activities you were involved with? Any Jewish organizations that you might have belonged to?
Mhm, lots of things. I was a brownie, I was a Girl Scout, and that's how you branch out, making more friends. Special memories. Yeah.
The sorority.
Huh?
The sorority.
Well, we didn't come to that part yet.
Okay.
He's talking, I was part of a sorority in high school, and that's when you form your,
Okay.
yeah.
Now tell me about Hill House. What was Hill House like then?
Well, the sorority was a good part of our life at
What was the name of the sorority?
Phi Kappa Lambda. And that's where I met a very dear friend of mine, who is still a very dear friend of mine. That's Marvin's wife, Mitzi.
Ah,
Mhm.
okay.
Actually, I think I met Mitzi in Troop. I think we went to Troop together. Maybe in 9th grade, or she was whatever, ahead of me, I think, years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and now, tell me more about the sorority. Did you have to pledge to get into it? What did it do?
Mitzi
How did it work?
Mitzi was my master.
She was your master?
Yes, she was my master.
So what did she do to you?
Oh, she did a lot of things. She was really very kind and considerate of me. I didn't have to do too many things like doing things for her.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Mitzi met Marvin when I met my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I was 14, 15.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And,
Wow.
my husband lived in Waterbury, and he was in a fraternity, and Marvin was in the same fraternity. So we had a little closed thing going there.
So tell me what
Many
the
years.
sororities did. What kind of activities did the sororities participate in? Was it mostly Jewish students who were in
All
this?
Jewish.
It was all
They
Jewish?
were all separated at the time. There were the Jewish, and there were the Protestants, and then there were the Catholic side.
And the sorority life started when you were in freshman, when you started
No, I think you had a pledge when you were a sophomore.
a sophomore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, what kinds of activities did the sorority have?
Social, basically.
Like
Dances. I'm not sure whether we must have done something charitable. Well, I remember what I did when I was in 6th grade, and we formed our own little club. I was going to Webster Street School, and we called ourselves the Jolly Half Dozen. And we decided we would do things. We made scrapbooks for the children at the hospital. We did some baking and brought things to school. And I still have those friends too, a long time ago.
Wow.
Jolly Half Dozen. We would meet at everybody's house taking turns, and our mothers would make hot chocolate and cookies for us. And we'd be silly and little kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, getting back to the National Hotel, that must have been a very difficult job for your parents, running a hotel. They
Yeah,
must have worked very hard.
What happened is during the war, my father was in the service, his partner was in the service, and it was just me and my mom. And we had to be air raid wardens for the area. We had to go to meetings at the City Hall is when we would go to the meetings. We had the hats, and we'd have to keep our eyes open as to what was going on. And we had to make sure that the shades were down, that the lights weren't shining through, because we were in a location which was easy to get to, I guess. And so that was a way of protecting us.
Mm-hmm. What do you remember about the day Pearl Harbor was bombed?
We were all sitting around the radio and listening, and
Where were
couldn't
you?
believe it.
Where were you?
I must have been at home.
On Button
The
Street?
radio, no.
In the
we
hotel?
were-
You were in high school?
Yeah,
You were in
yeah.
high school.
Yeah. But I was there most every day
Okay. So you're listening to the radio?
and couldn't believe it. I mean, just couldn't believe something like that could happen.
It was pretty shocking.
Very shocking.
What did you know about the war in Europe before December 7th, 1941?
Germany.
What did you know about it?
That wasn't very nice for us. We as Jews, it was a terrible thing.
So you had news about what was going on with the camps and everything?
Studied about it in school at the time.
What role did you play on the home front during the war, collecting cans, military service, factory?
The whole bit, yes, that's what we did.
What kinds of things did you do? How did it change your life?
I think we were all very much involved in what was going on and what could we do, and I think we had stamps too.
Ration stamps?
That's what you lived through. This was everyday conversation. This was did you hear this? They invaded that, things like that.
Did you have more responsibilities helping your mother run the hotel? Your father and your brother were both drafted.
No,
So-
my brother was drafted, my father volunteered.
Okay. How old was your father?
We figured out the other day that he was 37. I think 38 was the cutoff age.
Did he talk about why he volunteered?
We were making a joke. We said he was tired of fighting with my mother, so he decided he would volunteer. Why he did, I mean, he was a real American. I've often said to people that if he were living at this time and there was no respect for any president and what they did to he would just be turning over in his grave. I mean, this is not his America. This was, and he was a flag waver. That's why he really joined the Army.
Mhm.
Yeah. They,
So what was it like for you and your mother without your brother and your father around?
it wasn't easy. We did the best we could.
What kinds of things did you have to do to help
We
out?
did everything together. I mean, wherever my mother went, she took me.
For example?
To visit aunts and relatives. She had a sister who was close in the area, and we would spend a lot of time with them.
What about running the hotel?
Well, she managed. A lot of them were what we call steady people who lived there for a good length of time. There was a night clerk. The maids would come in and do their regular work, and she was a remarkable person. She did a bit.
Okay. Had she been working closely with your father before the war on running the hotel?
Yeah.
So she knew what to do, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I even knew how to work a switchboard.
So were you drafted to do some of the work in the hotel, like working the switchboard?
Yeah,
or
sure. If
something?
nobody was around when it was ringing, I would just pick up National
Mhm.
Hotel. Can I help you? Who did you want to speak to, please?
Okay, all right. Were
Oh,
there
well,
other...
you know what we did? Yeah, another chore that we did. We used coal. There was an old furnace downstairs, and we'd take turns shoveling coal into the furnace down there. You'd have to go down the steps. And right next door there was Jeanette's Musical Bar. That's where the restaurant is right now, I do believe. And we shared keeping it warm for them too. Everybody was in the same boat. Everybody tried to help each other at the time.
And you were going to school at the time. You were still
Mhm.
in high school. So when you got home from school, you would work the switchboard and shovel the coal?
Yeah, but it didn't sound like the way you're saying it. I mean, it was
How was
just
it?
part of every day, you know.
Okay, it was normal.
Yeah.
It was normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it different from the way it had been before December 7th, 1941? Or had you done that stuff?
Oh no, it was different. I was younger at that time. I was what? Yeah. No. No, yeah. I think we just took things for granted. This is the way our life was. We didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So how would you say the war affected your daily life?
I think you were really interested in what was happening. I'm trying to think of what grade and how. I shared everything with my mother, more than I think somebody at my age would have had to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I did everything with her.
How did it affect the opportunities that you had and the choices that you made during this period of your life? The fact that the war was going on.
You know, as I said, you know, when you grow up at an early age like that, you just sort of think that this is the way things are supposed to be.
Okay. How did the war affect the way you thought about your future? Like education, work, marriage? How did it affect the way you thought about your future?
Well, everything was different in my life. I met my husband at a very, very early age. He went off to the service. Actually, the war was not declared over at that time, but he went to Korea, the occupation of Korea. You mentioned before about President Roosevelt. I thought he was the best until I found out later on that he wasn't too nice to the Jews. He turned the ship back and didn't let them come hither. But we always thought, oh, he's a wonderful, wonderful president. And he did his good thing, but he wasn't that good to the Jews.
What about Eleanor Roosevelt? What were your feelings about her?
You know, I thought she was a well-educated woman. She was more outgoing than most women at that age. She brought up how many sons? Three sons? She did her thing, her own thing.
Okay. So she was a strong role model.
Mm.
Strong role model. How did other members of your family feel about the Roosevelts?
I don't think we ever discussed it. Only in later life did I learn about it. I didn't realize what was going on at that time.
How did the war change your ideas about the roles of men and women?
Well, we had more. We didn't have much say in things.
Women?
Yes.
Women.
Yeah.
When?
And if a woman wanted to be educated and wanted to do something, it would either be a teacher, a nurse. They didn't aspire to do anything more than that, I don't believe. Teachers and nurses, I think, at the time.
So how did the war change that? Did the war change that or not?
Yes, of course.
How?
Women had to be more active, take different roles in the world than they did as just plain mother, housekeeper and stuff. They had to do other things that men had been doing.
Okay. What's your reaction when you hear World War II called the Good War? There's a book recently written called The Greatest Generation and The Good War.
I think it brought us closer together. Maybe that was a good thing. People became more aware of things, didn't take things for granted.
Okay. How did being Jewish affect your feelings about the war?
It's your phone ring.
Yeah, well.
Let it ring.
I don't know, I think it made me more aware of the way people felt about us.
It's her phone.
That's your phone.
Oh,
Tell me what you mean by that.
I was aware of being Jewish. I just thought I was American. But it changed. That's not the way it was.
Did you experience anti-Semitism directly?
I don't think so. Not really. No. I always had a mixture of friends, Gentiles and Jews.
So how did being Jewish affect your feelings about the war? I mean, do you think you felt differently about the war than your Gentile friends felt about it?
Perhaps a little more.
In what way?
That there was such a thing as anti-Semitism. I was brought up in a sort of a small group, and I didn't realize that. I think at the time, Jews, blacks, sort of were closer together. I know my husband grew up in a black home. The house, three-family house, was owned by black people, and they were the nicest people to his whole family. His mother was a widow at a young age, and they cared for each other, really. So that sort of set me thinking, I'll never forget, there was a story that I will never forget it. At the hotel, we had a black woman working as a maid to do up the rooms, to clean, to do things. And she was so nice to me. Her name was Hattie. And I must have been about 6, 7 years old. And I'd be walking down the hall singing, and I sang the song, Eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch a beaker by the toe. Well, she ran close to me, and she took hold of my arm, and she said, "You're never, never to say that again." And I looked at her like, I don't know, what did I say? I never knew what I said. And I said to my mother later on, I said, "Why did Hattie do that, Mom?" And she said, "Well, that's not a nice word to call a black person." Oh, is that? And I never forgot that. Okay.
Okay, so when did you first become aware of what was happening to the Jews of Europe? Do you remember when it was?
Oh, yeah.
When did
I
you
think
first
we all
become
did.
aware?
You know, the thing of it is what's...
When was it that you became aware? Do you remember when? Was it before the war started or during the war?
I think it was before the war started. This is a busy house. It was before the war started. I'm sure it was then.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, I was at the age that I've read so much about it, I can't remember whether this is what I knew
Right.
then. I'm constantly reading, as we all are, and the things that happen. Should read the book, Why Me, I think it's called.
Tell me, what's it about?
It's about Germany during the war, and the Americans came in to free the concentration camps, and one of the German guards knew what was going to be happening to him, so he quickly pretended he was a prisoner. And he was let go as a Jew, and he followed the Jews to Israel, and everybody didn't know this. They thought he was Jewish, and that's what he became, Jewish. And he did a lot for the Jewish people and the causes, and he lived in Florida, married, his wife never knew, and when he finally died, he had died in a hospital, and his son would come to visit him, and he knew there was something but couldn't figure out what it was. So this German became a Jew. It was fascinating. The book was
It's a
fascinating.
true story?
Yeah.
True story, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Are there any other memories of World War II that you want to share before we go on to other parts of your life?
No, it was a hard time because my father, my brother were away, and my mother depended upon me a lot. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up fast.
Okay. So, tell me about after the war, when your husband came back.
Well, he was very, very lucky. He had the GI Bill, was able to go to school, which I don't think he would have been able financially before, because right out of the high school he went right into the service, so he had, I think he must have worked when he was 16. Well, anyway, that's what happened. He was very, very fortunate to go to school and be a friend of Marvin's.
What did he study?
Engineering.
Okay.
He was a bright young man. I always said he could have done 3 things. He could have been a rabbi, he could have been an accountant, and he was an engineer. So.
Okay. So you were in stores in Willimantic for 4 years when he came back while he was in school?
1 year I think he was here. He commuted back and forth to Waterbury. Is there an extension in Waterbury?
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, and then you lived there. What did you do while he was in school?
I worked for this dentist started my own little brownie group. I'm very fond of children and have a good rapport with them. And I got trained down there in Willimantic. And that's what I did.
Okay. And then when he was finished with his schooling at the University of Connecticut, where did you go then?
Came back to New Haven. I couldn't leave my mother.
Okay.
And he worked at United Aircraft, Norden.
Okay. And where did you live?
All over again. We lived at, we came back to New Haven. We stayed in Haven all the time. We went to Florida for a year and a half where he trained. He ran a course for Norden.
Okay.
And then he came home.
Okay. And your children were born soon after you moved back to New Haven?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Want to tell me about your children?
Okay, we had a little guy, David, who we lost at the age of 2 when we were in Florida. A year later, we had a set of twins. They're graduates of the University of Connecticut also. They both went on to a different level. Jonathan has a master's. Jody has a master's in psychiatric pediatric nursing. And John, after I thought he was going to be a student all his life, turned out to be a chiropractor.
Okay. And do they live in the area?
No, they live in the Boston area.
Oh, okay. Not too far away.
No, take the train.
And did you continue working after they were born?
No,
You took some time to...
I took time.
Right. You were very involved with their schools and the Jewish community. Do you want to say a little bit about your involvement with the community?
Well, this is an apartment that my mom and dad built onto our house and came to live here. As they were aging, things were getting a little bit difficult, and I couldn't keep running with twins back and forth. So this worked out very, very nicely for us. And I don't know, what else did you say?
You became involved with the Jewish community,
Yeah.
B'nai Shalom?
Yes, very much involved.
You taught Sunday school?
Mm-hmm. My husband was president.
Okay.
Always there to take over for the rabbi if you couldn't get a minyan for a funeral or whatever was happening. Greeted new members, men's club, the whole bit when you're involved in a synagogue.
Mm-hmm. And were you involved in the merger with Or Shalom? Can you tell me about that period? How that came? Why did they merge?
They merged because the financial bit of running a synagogue is much in a small little community, and we were down to having part-time rabbis, and Derby merged with us, so there's the 3 of us, Orange, Derby, and Milford. Now there's a whole new thing going on here in Milford. The Chabad is here, and there's another synagogue here now. And there's been an old little synagogue in Woodmont. Are you familiar with the area?
Yes, yes, yes.
My bubby, our bubby used to go there.
Mm-hmm.
She lived in Woodmont with another daughter of hers. And
What was her name? Your bubby's name?
Celia Small.
Sippa.
Cecilia.
Celia Small.
Celia,
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it was Smolowitz.
Smolowitz?
Mm.
Okay.
No, that was an interesting part that you might be. Because I was a minor, I was supposedly allowed an allotment for my dad being in the service. We had different names. Mine was Small and his was Smolowitz. So I had to go to a lawyer and have papers all written out and sent to whoever it was supposed to be. And then my mom got an allotment for me. So
Okay.
that was interesting, we thought.
Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to
No.
talk about?
I don't
You've
think
done-
so.
This has been wonderful. You've really covered a lot of very interesting history of your.
And I think
your
the most
life.
important one was my father and my brother being, they wrote them up in the New Haven Register, father and son, which was a little unusual, age difference.
How did you stay in touch with them when they were overseas?
They wrote.
They wrote.
They wrote, oh yeah. My father wasn't overseas, that was one of the things because of his
Okay.
age.
Okay.
They
Where
were-
was he? Where was he located?
He was in California, Camp Crowder. He was North Carolina, South Carolina.
Did anybody save the letters?
You know who has probably letters? Ruth. Did she call you before?
No.
Our
I showed her a picture of Ruth, sitting right there by you.
yeah, she was in the service, our cousin Ruth, and she was very close to my father. And she and he corresponded. She was a whack. Whack, yeah.
Yeah, what?
Okay. Is she still alive?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where does she live?
West Haven.
Oh, we should talk to her. What do you think?
She probably, I don't know.
Do you think she
Yeah.
has any of the letters? Did anybody save the
Well,
letters?
I had letters until everything that when I moved here from Florida,
Yeah.
everything got lost on the transit.
I probably have letters downstairs.
It'd be great to see letters,
If I can find one, I certainly will.
especially letters.
I have all my husband's letters.
I have.
Letters that the women wrote. Letters that the women wrote about their lives, especially.
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
I
You're
wanted
welcome.
to tell you that,
Thank you, Rita.
I don't know whether it means
Right.
anything, but when you said, did I work? When my daughter was 5 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I went to work for a doctor
Mm-hmm.
in New Haven, and I worked 15 years for him.
Which doctor was that?
Jerry Brand,
Okay.
he was a podiatrist.
Okay.
And because of him and in my interest in podiatry and his interest and influence, I have a son who's a podiatrist.
Isn't that something?
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's a good story.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Is there anything else that we left out?
Well, my oldest is a dentist, and my daughter, who's coming in a minute, is a
Okay.
teacher of the deaf,
Oh.
and she'd like to meet you.
Oh.
And she's in your house on your computer.
Okay.
God.
So I guess we'll adjourn to the other side then.
Yes, we'll
Thank
go
you
over there.
both. It's just been a pleasure. I've
Yeah,
been looking forward to
Thank
this.
you.
I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Okay, well,
And thanks to Marvin for setting it up.